What did aristocratic ladies in the Heian period, like Murasaki Shikibu, wear around court? In the episode linked above, we talked about what Heian period ladies were expected to do for work in the inner court offices. But what would they have been wearing to work, or for rituals, or even in their leisure? I enjoy not only studying the history, but also experiencing it. The thing is, there's not much in the way of contemporary art or writings left to us, and our understanding of the Heian period has been clouded by how people of the Edo period thought of the Heian period. I was going to need help. For this video, I had the great opportunity to go to Kyoto and talk to the members of the Heian Shozoku Kocho-no-kai, a group whose members practice putting on traditional clothing. I also consulted with traditional fashion author Takashima Katsuko-san on the different types of aristocratic dress, and I'll share my research from her new book, Heian Fashion no Sekai. In this episode, we'll talk about what the Heian period ladies were wearing to court, where did it come from, what's it like putting it on, and if I can actually move around in it. Heian period aristocratic women wore the junihitoe. Hitoe is an unlined kimono. Several unlined kimono were layered over each other for the look. But the junihitoe as we know it today is not from the Heian period, but actually from the Edo period. If you do a junihitoe experience in Kyoto or in Tokyo, you will more than likely get the Edo period version. The climate in the Edo period was a lot colder, so more layers were needed, but this was not true of the Heian period. It was a lot hotter back then. While junihitoe means 12 layers, ladies were restricted to 5 layers tops, with more layers given to the upper class ladies and the empress. Our story about the Heian period junihitoe starts in the previous Nara period. At this time, China, more specifically Tang Dynasty China, was a very big part of Japan's government, and diplomatic missions were sent in order to import different aspects of Tang Dynasty China back to Japan. Since Japanese aristocrats had business with the Chinese, they also had to dress the part, even when the court moved to the Heian Palace. For more important rituals, the Mononobu Shozoku was worn. This would be the precursor to the junihitoe. When does the fashion change from the Tang Dynasty fashion to the junihitoe? Well, can you believe it? It happens during a succession dispute! Seriously, when does this end? In 810, when Emperor Saga was to be emperor after Emperor Heizei, lady-in-waiting and Emperor Heizei's lover, Fujiwara Kusuko, was opposed to the succession. You see, Fujiwara Kusuko was the secretary to the emperor, and would write down and pass on the emperor's edicts. Kusuko was opposed to working with Emperor Saga, despite Emperor Heizei retiring, and so she broke the court in two. Emperor Heizei ruled from Heijō-kyo in Nara, and Emperor Saga from Heian-kyo in Kyoto. There is much more to the ruckus that Fujiwara Kusuko caused that's way too much to talk about here. But because of this incident, Emperor Saga would do this. 女性は家の奥にいてみだりに外へ出ず、外出ときは顔を隠す. They were banished from court, were not to go outside, and if they did, they had to cover their faces. On the other hand, because the women were forced inside and they were not to be seen by anyone, they were able to enjoy their clothing a lot more than the men could. They were able to play around with colors and patterns as long as they followed certain color combinations that were based on the seasons. The only restrictions that they had were that the mo had to be tied outside the uchigi, and there were certain colors that were forbidden for them to wear. We're going to talk about those forbidden colors in another episode. By the late Heian period, the time of Murasaki Shikibu, what were the ladies wearing? Takashima Katsuko-san beautifully illustrates different outfits worn by aristocratic ladies, by the samurai class women, and by the general population. But today, I'm only going to talk about 2 different outfits that were worn by the aristocratic ladies. For more information, I suggest that you get this book. Not sponsored, but it is a very good book, and I think you should have it. Outside of work, ladies were wearing the uchigi sugata. Over a kosode shirt and nagabakama, 4 layers of kimono plus an uchigi as the outermost layer were worn. Now, because of the hot climate in the Heian period, they more than likely were not wearing so many layers. So here we can see 2 layers of hitoe with no uchigi. At work, they wore the Nyobo shozoku. On top of a kosode shirt and nagabakama, they wore 1 layer of hitoe, 5 layers of itsutsuginu, an uchiginu, and a karaginu, all tied together with a mo. Can you imagine working in this? I needed to find that out for myself. So I visited the Heian Shozoku Kocho-no-kai in Kyoto to learn more. I'm going to be trying the Nyobo Shozoku. What I'm going to show you is normally not filmed, since most junihitoe experiences claim they hold proprietary ways for dressing. But the Heian Shozoku Kocho-no-kai gave me permission to film even during the dressing process. They are a group that practices putting on Heian period clothing in order to keep the tradition alive. The junihitoe dressing experience is usually a very somber and ritualistic experience, but I was able to talk with the members about what was going on.
着付ける方をお方、御方と言います。とても偉い方なので、今から私たち礼をしますが、礼はし返さなくて大丈夫です。歌ってくださいませ。
To start the dressing, the dressers bow to the okata. Unlike what I'm wearing here, the okata would start off with wearing a kosode and a nagabakama. The okata stands there like a doll. She does not raise her arms for the dressers, and she does not talk nor bow to the dressers. The front dresser would open the legs of the hakama for the okata to step into. It is then raised to the waist and tied like hakama are tied today, tying the front sash to the back and the back sash to the front. This would be the undermost layer for women. The next 2 layers are the koromo. The back dresser rests the koromo on the okata's shoulders, and the front dresser lifts the right arm, then the left arm, and inserts it into the sleeves. The koromo is temporarily tied with a himo. On top of this, a second koromo is put on and also tied with a himo. The first himo is then removed. This is considered the underwear. This koromo is made of asa linen, light enough for the hot weather climate. Over the koromo are 2 layers of hitoe and the uwagi. Once the layers are secured with a himo, the himo holding the koromo underneath is pulled away. I was surprised by this because kimono today require about 2 or 3 himo to keep the kimono together, and they can't be taken away. This uwagi is a nice purple color with a pattern on it related to the Heike clan. It has 2 butterflies facing each other. The pattern is called mukaecho. The mo is the last thing to be put on. Placed at the back and tied in front like the back half of a hakama, it secures the whole kimono together and the previous himo is removed. The mo was given to a lady at her coming of age ceremony called mogi, usually when she turned 11. I didn't even react to that. Don't worry, she had to do that to keep everything together, but I am wearing 6 layers plus the hakama at my waist at this point, so no amount of gyu is going to affect me. And here is the finished look. The dressers hand me a hyogi, a fan made of bamboo. Finally, the dressers bow to the okata, signaling the end of the dressing. Can I move? Before moving, you have to kick your feet out to put them into the hakama. It was taboo to show feet during this period, so ladies stood inside the hakama and slid around on the balls of their feet, with the rest of the hakama leg trailing behind. It was hard to get used to, and you can see me here lumbering around. However, my fast-walking Osaka step was also taboo for a Heian period lady-in-waiting.
はい、では歩いていってください。先ほどみたいにつま先から歩きます。ちょっと早いですね。だいぶ早いですね。はい。すごいなんかもたもたした感じなんで、もっとゆっくり歩きます。ちょっとここ持ってていただいていいですか？ゆっくり一歩ずつゆっくり歩きます。
If you wanted to turn, you had to kick back the hakama and kimono and turn in the direction you wanted to go. Again, it does take some getting used to. Remember that edict in 810 about women not being able to show their faces? The hyogi was used for hiding faces while at court. Can I sit? This was surprising to me. Heian period ladies sat in tatehiza. For those practicing Budo, this makes sense to you for sure. Totally made sense to me. For those who don't know what tatehiza is, you kneel on your right knee, but your left knee is bent up like this. I could see why this made sense. Getting up from seiza, or a complete kneeling position, was not going to work out in the nagabakama, at least not gracefully. It was surprising for me to know that seiza would not yet be a sitting position, and that would come much, much, much later in history. How do you go to the bathroom? I learned that the Heian period court was very similar to the French court. People of the Heian period did not bathe, they toweled down. They used tons of fragrance to steam their kimonos clean, and they washed their very, very long hair in very teeny tiny bowls. But how did they go to the bathroom since they were unable to take off all of this just to go? Well, just like the French ladies in their large panniers, Heian period women had a pot that they slid into their hakama and held in between their legs. I have not seen the Japanese version of this as it doesn't come up in a museum. We need to talk about these things. So now it's time to take it off. Once the mo is untied, everything else can be peeled away. You do not realize how hot it is until you take it off. 一気に寒くなります。In order to air out the kimono, the layers are stood up in a display. This would have been seen all over the palace. Kimono were taken off and displayed at the lattices to get some air through them. Thank you so much for putting this on. Yeah, I really thought that it would be heavier, actually. Since I'm really used to wearing kimono, I don't think it's very much different. I think if I wore this all day, then I would probably get tired. So while I was getting put into the junihitoe, we had somebody here to draw me in proper Heian style. So this is her drawing. どうですか？いや、かわいいですね。本当にかわいい。ありがとう。とてもかわいい姫なので、描いてて嬉しかったです。ありがとうございます。すごい。可愛く書いてくれたんです。また書かせてください。はい、ありがとうございます。あ、すいません。いや、 here I am. you to the Heian Shozoku Kocho-no-kai 代表 Takasuga-san, traditional clothing collector Asagi-san, Sato Tomoko-san for introducing me to the Heian Shozoku Kocho-no-kai, and also to artist Mishima Yuko-san. Arigatou gozaimasu. Also, thank you to Takashima Katsuko-san and Yurindo for allowing me to share Heian Fashion no Sekai in this episode. Arigatou gozaimashita. What an amazing experience. You can't know about a time period or a social class without experiencing what they wore. I think it's a very important part of learning history. If you do get the opportunity to experience something like this, do it. But in this episode, we talked about the aristocratic women. What about the aristocratic men? What about Hikaru Genji? Well, this video was part 1 in a 3-part series, so for the aristocratic men, stay tuned for part 2. But that's all I have for you today. See you next time.
極度南春でございました。